Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik here. Today is the 20th of May, 2025. I want to welcome you all to week number 20. Week number 20 of year number 2 of the online personal transformation program for Angel Wing. Just as a just as a quick review, there are 5 stages with regards to the core energy utilization in all 12 dimensions of our lives. Energy activation utilization is stage 1. Stage 2 is energy equalization. Stage 3 is energy conservation. Stage 4 is energy revitalization. This is the area that we're looking at in the current series. And then there's energy transmutation. We'll be looking at that next after the current series is done. So, a couple of things to keep in mind. Just as a quick review, that conservation and revitalization are interconnected phases in personal energy management. Our program is an application program for me, for you, for everyone else listening to this in the future or at any point. It's application. We have to manage our internal personal energy, right? So this is a basic idea. Conservation prevents unnecessary depletion. Revitalization replenishes existing reserves. Very basic things. This is just a quick review. Together, they form a cyclical model of sustainable personal energy. So this is application. It goes hour at a time. Literally, it's just an hour at a time. It's literally that simple, actually. Right. So revitalization builds upon effective conservation strategies. Understanding both enhances holistic well-being. Okay, so that's very, very clear. Now, let's see here. Give me just a moment. I wanted to just make sure I'm at the right spot here. Okay. Hold on one moment. This is where I wanted to begin, right here. It's from the current slide. Okay, so today we're going to talk about mental and cognitive synergy. So conservation limits cognitive overload and decisional fatigue. So these are 2 concepts to start out with this evening. What is cognitive overload? Too much activity going on. Some of us are thinkers. We analyze. I tend to do that. I've done that a lot in the past, and it's not good for us. So cognitive overload is too much thought, just thinking we're talking about. Now, how does that relate to the TEMDE? And then we'll talk about revitalization and how that connects together. So remember, the TEMDE, how they are together, thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy, that they function together at any one point. So cognitive overload is where we are in an active process of using cognition to think, analyze, and then it just jumps from one thing to another, or rumination again and again. We've all gone through it, every one of us, I'm sure. And what does that do? It burns up energy, intellectual energy. It actually destabilizes emotions. It causes our memory structure to not be integrated because the imbalance inside the cognition realm, the T realm, the thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy, the imbalance in the cognition realm, like through cognitive overload, will cause an imbalance in the other 4. So why does that even happen? Why does cognitive overload happen? Because the tool that is cognition meaning intellection or cognitive process, cognitive ability to think, it's just a tool. It's not meant to just be switched on just randomly or indefinitely. But that's what tends to happen in quite a number of people. And even maybe in our lives. We switch it on and we just keep thinking and it just goes on. So somebody might say, wait a minute, are you saying we shouldn't be thinking? We're not saying that. We're saying we need to be mindful of the quantity of thought. And that goes back to the quantity, quality, direction, dimension, depth, and structure, those 6 points. Too much overthinking, overanalysis. Now, how to deal with this? We need to certainly use our cognitive ability to the best possible level and to use it at the right depth, at the right time, in the right amount. And then that's enough. And then after that, there's no need to keep regurgitating the same thing again and again, unless there is a reason to kind of go over it again for more solidification. So to recognize that demarcation, again, it's that demarcation line between the right and healthy amount of cognition, quantity of cognition, and then that demarcation line into it begins to overload. Right? So this is the homework exercise for this week, is to recognize, where is my demarcation line? This is something which I also have been, dealing with over so many years, this exact same issue. Because I have a tendency, as some of you probably know, to like to analyze a lot of things and go into a lot of depth on so many things. I mean, that's fine. That ability is a good ability, but it doesn't need to just be switched on. It needs to be switched on when it needs to be switched on. Otherwise, leave it alone. Leave it alone and not be in an overload state. Be in a very good revitalized state. So we're talking about the energy in cognition that gets revitalized. Now, this is the distinction I want to make here. The distinction between cognitive overload and cognitive revitalization. I'll give you a very simple example. This just happened just yesterday, or the day before yesterday. I was reading a book on something on pharmacology, the way medicines work and all that. And I kind of, I was interested in this. I wanted to read like many pages of it. I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to read too many pages of it. Like, this is just my own example from like day before yesterday. So I'm only going to read 5 paragraphs. That's it. But I'm going to read them. I'm going to recognize, try to remember the concepts. And from that, I'm just going to allow my thoughts to integrate internally with that information, with so many other things that are already in my mind. I'm not in pharmacy school. I don't need to be studying pharmacology, but to get a grade or to get a license. No, I just wanted to study it because of some reasons for angel wing, to get some background on some specific subjects. So I said, I'm just going to read 5 paragraphs. And actually, that was very good for me. I read 5 paragraphs, and that was enough. Then I spent I just went for a walk for like 15, 20 minutes. I said, let me remember what I read. How does that integrate with so many other areas? And it was beautiful, But if I would have read 3 or 4 or 5 pages, I would have gotten very tired because I'm just trying to remember too much information and it's not integrating then inside. I'm overloading myself too much with information. And that's very harmful. Particularly when you're not studying for an exam or anything like that. You don't need to have all that information. It's not the quantity so much, it's the quality that makes all the difference. Particularly when you're doing it for leisure or you're doing it for some projects or whatever. Too much overloading we have a tendency to do that. And that's just one very small example. But we do that in conversations, we do that in relationships, we do that with YouTube videos, we do that with the news. I mean, we do that with family members. We do it in so many places. We do it with world events and wars and, all the wars going on right now. People overload their mind by watching those same stories again and again and again. You've already seen it, but what's the point in watching that again another 10 more times? How many people are doing that? They watch the same story. There's nothing different about it, but they watch it again and they watch it again and they watch it again. And what does that do? It damages cognition. So the point here for revitalization is to keep the cognitive faculty fresh. You can write this point down. This is all very practical because we all think. Every human being thinks. But we are not just an intellect. We are also an emotional being. And we definitely don't want to be in a state of cognitive overload. I mean, that is absolutely harmful. I mean, it is not something that is going to be helpful to anybody. And it can have rebounding effects. The rebound from that can be now some kind of hyper emotionalism or doing something to deal with the mental stress. People say, I'm stressed out. Well, why are you stressed out? Because we've generated the stress inside. So it is the art of using thinking ability as needed in the right quantity with the best quality in a direction that makes sense. See, quality, quantity, direction with a certain amount of depth. And what does that do for us? That keeps the cognition in a very good active state, and it also doesn't overactivate it. And by not overactivating it, it can then reintegrate the energy within and revitalize. Like the example I just gave you, simple example of reading 5 paragraphs on something which is just a very introductory text on pharmacology. I read 5 paragraphs, but how well is it integrating inside? And that's what really matters. It's not the amount of information. Even like in Angel Wing, we have so much information coming from all sides. But that doesn't mean we should be, just trying to put all of it together inside of us. No, that's not its purpose. We're doing it because it's a worldwide audience. That's why. And there really is a worldwide audience for Angel Wing. That's why we have so many recordings. But we can't possibly apply every single concept. No, we apply what we can. We try to integrate. So this is a concept for today. That demarcation between cognitive overload and cognitive efficiency. Efficiency, yes. Right amount of energy being placed there, beautiful. And then if we do that, when we do that, our emotions are also going to function in the best way. So they go together. There's always an emotional experience. Our emotions are an experience in themselves. Right? So now there is a bridge between these two. And that bridge between the cognition and emotion is healthy revitalization. That's what it is. And it literally goes an hour at a time, a minute at a time. It's just one action at a time. But because our mind is so fast, it goes in hundreds of directions. It can go very, very quickly in God knows how many directions. And the overload is where we get exhausted. We feel it. That there's too much exhaustion is there. So the practical exercise for this week is to absolutely recognize the problems of cognitive overload and decision fatigue. Now, what is decision fatigue? Let's talk about that. There's 2 points here. Cognitive overload and decision fatigue. Decision fatigue happens when there are so many possibilities ahead of us. You don't know which way to go. Maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this, Now, how do you avoid decision fatigue? You avoid it by planning. I don't mean like compulsive planning or something like that, but yeah, there's maybe so many decisions. You make the right one and then just go carry through. One of the best ways to avoid decision fatigue, as I mentioned before, is to follow through on the decisions we make. Sachin makes a decision that these 3 things are going to be done in the next hour. Then if I make that decision, then it's followed through on, end of story. And then it's done with. And then so I'm free. I'm promoting my own freedom. I'm not creating tension. I'm following through on my decisions, which is what we don't do. Most people don't follow through on their own decisions. Yeah, I want to do this. I'll make a decision. I'll do this. We don't follow through on it. The art of following through on one's own decisions eliminates decision fatigue. And then that promotes very just good quality experience all the way through, right? So cognitive overload and decision fatigue, we want to eliminate them this week. Just get rid of them. We don't need it at all. Now, revitalization renews mental clarity and executive function. So what happens? What is the result of eliminating cognitive overload? What is the result of eliminating decisional fatigue? And the result is revitalization of mental clarity. It renews mental clarity. Yes, we want to be clear psychologically, mentally. How beautiful is that? Mental clarity it has a great beauty in that. Mental clarity doesn't mean keep the mind just going and going and going and going, spinning. No, that's not mental clarity. Now, so mental clarity and executive function, what exactly are they? How would you define them? What is that? Well, it's an experience, right? It's experiential. If my mind is clear, the actions I'm going to be taking are coming from that clear mind. Clear mind is what? How do we understand what that could even mean? It just means that there is a clear vision of what I'm doing, where am I headed, what's going on. There's no clouding inside. That is called mental clarity. And that is cognitive clarity. So clarity is just a very wonderful, steady state. But it doesn't remain in most people. It doesn't remain. It remains for some time, and then, we go back into the spinning confusion again. So how do we prevent that? By recognizing, where is my clarity? We don't know how to do that even. So let's talk about that. How does Sachin recognize where is his clarity? Well, I need to kind of sit in meditation for a while. Maybe I can do it in my home environment. I can do it in a park. I can do it somewhere just for the purpose of deciding, recognizing what clarity is for me. I need to think about it. I need to meditate on that. I need to examine that. There's a good use of the mind, use of thought, and use of memory, and all of that. What does mental clarity mean for me? Have I done that? Have I sat for a good 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour? Just probe this one question. And it's good to do it in a dialogue or with a couple of people. We can do it at some point if you want, and it's great. It's a great exercise because we want to be in that state. But we cannot be in that state until the first step is to sit silently and to ask the question, what is mental clarity in general? And what is it for me in particular? Question number 1. This is serious. I'm going to show you how to do it. Question number 1 is, what is mental clarity in general? What does that even concept mean? If you don't know what it means, you want to look it up, just put it in the AI. It'll give you as much information as you want. No problem, right? But the information not going to help us just by itself. We need to internalize and see, okay, for me, what does it mean? The way I would put what is mental clarity is that there is no confusion. There is no doubt, there's no confusion, there's no dispersion of thoughts, there's no cognitive overload, there's no laziness, there's no damage to the cognition by overanalysis. None of that is there. And that promotes very, very good mental clarity. Of course, regular exercises, the right diet, things like that, that is going to be very helpful. Because mind meaning brain, mind and brain, they cannot function in a healthy way unless we have the right nutrition, right diet, enough sleep, things like that. That's the physical aspect. Right? So this is mental clarity. Now, so that's the step 1. Step 1 is to ask what is mental clarity for me? Visualize, create a picture that my mind should be this way, my thinking should be this way. Then this is clarity. What is mental clarity for me? Ask the question, and then what do? We create a vision that in the next 3 or 4 hours, I want to be in a clear state. Because I want that. Well, how do I do that? If I say that I want to be in a clear state. So I might say, well, okay, I'm going to do some spiritual study. I'm going to listen to this lecture. I'm going to do some exercise. I'm going to do some meditation. I will automatically know, because of my past studies and whatnot, what mental clarity is for me and how do I do it. And I also know what is not mental clarity, what is confusion, what is pollution, what is polluting the mind, what is creating disturbance inside the mind. Again, there's a demarcation between a clouded mind versus a clear mind. It's simple demarcation. And if you're making notes, you can just make a little circle and you can put a line right in the middle, and left side put clouded mind, right side put clear mind. Very simple. Or you can make a box or a diagram in any way you want, right? There's a demarcation line there. A confused mind, a clouded mind, a clouded space from inside. We don't want that. We don't want that at all. And we can actually consciously choose to not be in that cloudy space. It happens with relationships, with certain decisions we don't. So we have to pull back and see the whole picture, all 12 areas, what's happening in my life, get rid of the confusions, take whatever steps are needed to get rid of them, so that getting ourselves in that state of mind that I want to be in. And right now we're just talking about cognition, but the same principle applies to emotions. It applies to memory retrieval. It applies to relationship dynamics. It applies across the board, the same principle. It's not a different principle, right? So it's application, and it's individualized. Again, this is why we're using the language very carefully. Mental clarity, like I said, I want that for the next 2 hours. I want my mind to be clear. So what do I need to do for that? Maybe I need to walk a little bit. Maybe I need to do some exercises. I need to listen to some devotional music. I don't know. It's going to be, I have to decide what that even means for me. What has been my past experience? That's the third step. How do I examine the past experience? When has my mind been clear? What was there in my life so that my mind was clear? And what clouds it? So then the fourth step is to take the actual steps and get into that zone of clarity. So you can write this next point down. Zone of clarity. Zone of clarity is a matter of recognizing, this is a zone where my mind is so steady, it's clear, it's pure, it's not wavering, it's not getting clouded up. I see that. I can recognize that. And once we recognize that zone and can actually live in that zone, natural revitalization and conservation are happening. That is just a beautiful place to be in. There is beauty there. So it is a recognition of that zone of clarity. And once we are in that zone, we're in the right direction. But now, how do we get to that zone? We can do it ourselves. We can try to really see these things and place ourselves in that direction. Yes, we might need to go into a dialogue group or go to there's a lot of ways of going about it. That's why we have so many, meditation programs and retreats, and we have all that because we want to move into that zone of clarity. That's the reason why. So there are steps to that, but and these are the basic steps. So the basic point is to recognize what is clarity for me, and then to stay in that, and then to recognize how I'm moving out of it. If I'm moving out of that zone, why? Why am I moving out of it? What's taking me out of it? See, that's an interesting point. Now, staying in that zone doesn't mean one is just, just stagnated. No, it's not like that. One can do a lot of different actions, take a lot of different actions, and be in that zone continuous, for hours and hours and hours, eventually. Yes. It's a great deal of steadiness. Now, see, this is the other word that really applies to this. It's an internal steadiness, calmness. Calmness is not dullness. Calmness, steadiness. And in that there is silence also. So these are beautiful states, and from that we can do quite a bit that we want to do. So happiness is there, joy is there, right? So, all right. So now, having said that, let's go a little bit further here. Again, there's some practical steps to take. Always take some breaks. Don't do one activity too much. Could be any activity. I don't know. Sorry about that hand going up. I have no idea why that's even happening. It's just coming up by itself. So just ignore that. It's kind of strange. But breaks and downtime allow natural restoration. Yes. Downtime is just downtime. It's like you're not active at that time. For a certain amount of time, we're very active, and then pull back again. Take a break. Settle down with it. Do some deep breathing. Natural restoration. That will cause revitalization. So when we go through this process, our brain changes. The function of the brain changes. The structure of the brain changes. That is neuroplasticity, is neuroplastic efficiency. Definitely, our health gets better. We don't wind up eating so much. We generally eat too much. Most human beings these days are eating way too much. They're overstimulating our senses. So to reduce the quantity of what we're eating happens when there is more executive function, more clarity, more joy, just more overall well-being, right? So then productivity is enhanced, through alteration of effort and rest. I mean, there's effort and rest. They keep alternating. And so it goes back and forth. The whole day can progress that way. And that's how whatever productivity we're engaged in, it definitely gets a lot better over time, right? So mental and cognitive synergy involves optimizing brain energy. The energy inside the brain is optimized. Why is that? I mean, what's actually going on inside the brain? The brain, as you know, is an electrochemical system. It is a massive series of neuronal connections. So mental and cognitive synergy. So when there is synergy with our actions, with our feelings, with our day-to-day activity, our brain energy level is best. It's the best, and it's very healthy for the brain. So that the energy flowing through, the electrical signals flowing through the brain are functioning in the right way, in a much better way. Because damage actually can happen to brain function once there's a lot of stress, there's trauma, there's problems of all kinds, there's not synergy, then the brain doesn't function in the right way. It's not homeostatic. Right? So energy conservation and renewal are key to mental clarity, of course. So brain functions thrive on rhythm and cycles. So the brain function, it is a mechanism, right? It's a neurochemical mechanism. So it has to be taken care of very carefully. The brain has to be taken care of because that's our life. So brain function thrives on rhythm and cycles, right kind of cyclical patterns that conserve and renew and because we go through cyclical patterns all the time. And if they're done without energy fragmentation, they're done in synergy, the patterns are moving in the right way, our brain is going to be a lot healthier. And if the brain is healthier, body is healthier. And we live longer, we live just a better quality life. There's the tensions, the stress, all those agitations, they are eliminated. So the point here is mental and cognitive synergy. Now, what all that simply means is the TEMDE, they are synergized. They're synergized. They are coming together in the best possible way. Okay, now, there's many points here just hold on 1 second here. Yes, conservation preserves cognitive resources. This is the next point to write down. We have a lot of resources inside our brain, our mental resources. We need to conserve them, not damage them. right? So let me talk a little bit about that, what that actually means. Let's see what happened to this. Something strange happened in this. Oh, I see that. Okay, I see that. All right, so a mental revitalization enhances clarity. Yes, that's true. Conservation preserves cognitive resources. So what are cognitive resources? What is that? Cognitive resources are the capacities of the mind. And there's quite a few of them, right? So conservation, revitalization. It takes the cognitive resources we have. For example, ability to contemplate, ability to read, ability to talk to people, ability to hold on to certain memories. I mean, there are hundreds of such things that the mind does. It just goes on. Those are our resources. So those resources need to be kept intact, not harmed, not damaged, not torn apart. The ability to think in a direction in depth is a resource. If you want to do that, and then pull back from there. The ability to select one's language very carefully with conversation with others. Think things through before speaking. That's a cognitive resource. The ability to choose between what I should be eating, what I shouldn't be eating, what I should be seeing, what I shouldn't be seeing, what I should, that discrimination. It's not racial discrimination, it's a demarcation, right? So this is a cognitive resource. To not hold on to tension, stress, worry, fear, agitation is a cognitive resource. It's cognitive strength, intellectual strength, emotional strength. So when we use the word resource, that means it is a potentiality. We have potentiality that can become kinetic, that can become active as needed. So this is all part of the internal energy reservoir, right? So these cognitive resources are an absolute key. All right, let's go a little bit further here. And we don't want to be burned out, reduce overload and prevent burnout. This is another big issue. This burnout is another serious problem. The word burnout means we're literally burning our inner energy. We're just burning it inside out, and then causing a lot of trouble trying and figuring out how to regain that. And then we overeat, overthink, we do extreme things. I mean, it's a havoc in the system. The HPA axis gets overloaded. The hypothalamus pituitary gland axis. There's a lot of physiology behind that, right? So yes, we want to be focused throughout the day. Yes, we want to make better quality decisions. We want to make room for higher ordered thinking. But how is that even going to happen? Until there is the stopping of the burnout. A higher ordered thinking is not going to happen. That can be very joyful. And, people sometimes say, well, I don't want to think too much, too deeply. People get, sometimes you have a deep conversation. They say, oh my God, that was too deep for me. Now you've got, because we are already so burned out, we're not able to even touch that depth that is actually possible for us. But when we stop the inner burning out of over-analysis, over-activation of emotion, over-diving into past memories, it all burns energy, destroys energy. When we stop that, then the capacity for higher ordered thinking and higher quality emotion, higher quality life experience opens up. Yes, absolutely. The people who are very advanced, maybe in their careers, maybe in spirituality, maybe in meditation, maybe in their quest towards realizing God, whatever, people who have, you can see that there's lists of them throughout the world. They have made a lot of advancement. They have done these two things. They have stopped energy burnout. And they use that energy for higher ordered activity. Lots of examples are there. Lots of examples. If you look at the scriptures of the world, which we are doing on Thursday evenings, a lot of it has to do with that only. Stopping all of the damage and using the same power, directing it towards the divine. Things like that. You can direct it towards in any direction that you want. You can be a great pianist or a great scientist or just be a great family member. You can when we stop burning out our own powers from inside, we become loving actually to all those around us. Really, it's a fact. This is a master key. I've always mentioned this before about the energy being a master key. Stop burning it out. Use it as necessary. Revitalize it. And that is going to promote higher living, higher contemplation, and then we won't get tired. Then Sachin can, actually read some philosophy books or read some spiritual books or I don't know, or read something in depth or have a more in-depth conversation, all that, which we're actually doing in Angel Wing. The conversations our core group is having has taken just leaps and bounds. I've seen that in the last 2 years. It's grown so much. Why is that? Because burning out process is getting stopped by higher ordered contemplation. If more people started higher ordered living, higher ordered emotions, better quality emotions, my God, how fantastic the world will be. And that is what we're trying to achieve. And we're going to achieve that first with ourselves. We cannot change the world until we change ourselves. It's very, very simple. The only person Sachin needs to change is me. I cannot change anybody else. I need to transform myself. And if I do that, it's going to automatically impact those who I'm in connection with. That is a universal law. That is a universal law. Okay, now a couple more points here. Then we'll get to the quantum quality in just a couple of minutes here. Okay, all right, let's go to the next point here. Yes. Again, revitalization enhances clarity. Clarity is not just a word. It is a state. It's an extraordinary, beautiful state. Recharging depleted cognitive circuits. Yes, depletion can happen. Recharge. Revitalize. Sit for meditation. Sit for contemplation. Rethink what's been going on. Don't overanalyze anything. Never try to change the past because it doesn't exist. We're just building a bright memory structure, but that we call the past. But that also exists in the present. You can't change any of it. So don't even think about trying to change it. It's a total waste. Supports, the planning process, reasoning process. Yes, absolutely. That is fantastic. That is absolutely wonderful. So the planning process, reasoning process is done with the most efficiency. Mood and motivation are boosted. By the way, what is mood? That is emotional experience. There's a lot of technical lingo behind mood and affect. I won't go into that right now. But that is our state of emotion generally. So mood and motivation are both enhanced once all of this happens. And again, this is going to happen an hour at a time. These ideas are to be contemplated on. You've heard Sachin here talk about it. It's all right. It's being recorded. But try to remember these ideas and see how they apply for oneself and try to apply them. Because long-term performance, long-term just living is going to be better. Natural restoration. What does that mean? What is natural restoration? All that means is you are just simply allowing the inner mechanism of the mind to settle naturally, rather than trying to force it to settle or trying to be reactive towards that. No, let it settle naturally. How beautiful is that? Whatever may be going on, there's a natural settling. And that promotes creativity. The natural restoration and creativity go hand in hand. We find creative solutions, creative ways. We find new dimensions, new ways of trying to really enhance ourselves. Mental clutter goes away. This mental clutter is another huge problem. So much clutter inside. No, we don't want to analyze the problems. If it's there, it will automatically reduce. Following all these principles, information will be retained even better, right? Neuroplasticity is better, learning and adaptation is better, memory consolidation is better. I mean, all there's benefits upon benefits upon benefits. The moment we actually are living in that space of clarity, essential for lifelong brain health. Just like any other organ, brain is the master organ. It needs to be healthy. And for it to be healthy, we have to recognize what is health for my brain. Okay. Very good, very good. Executive function needs restoration time. That's the prefrontal cortex. That's the more evolved part of the brain. That's where executive function is, higher brain function. We need to be able to conserve good amount of energy, and so that it restores and revitalizes. Planning and self-regulation require energy, right? Yes, inhibitory control. This is a great point. Conservation supports inhibitory control. The capacity to say no, the capacity to say this is the limit here for me, with whatever. I mean, it could be with anything, right? With TV, with food, with exercise. There's always a limit. It's called inhibitory control. So another exercise for this week is, where is my inhibitory control? As I'm moving through the day, am I overstimulating myself? So the more conservation we have, the better the inhibitory control. They go, again, hand in hand. That's a huge idea. Huge idea. It's not just an idea. We want to make it real. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later on. But that inhibitory control promotes better decision making, reduces impulsive decisions. And then replenishment helps task switching. Here's another concept. One task is finished with, another one starts, another action starts. That's the way the whole day goes. So the more we can replenish our resources, we can switch tasks better. Otherwise, there's a tendency to not switch tasks. We want to just get zoned in on one thing only. Right? So that's another quality. See how these beautiful qualities, inhibitory control, restoration, task switching, reduction of cognitive overload. This is all part of revitalization. So, so our working memory gets boosted. How nice is that? Because our brain is functioning better. Our brain is healthier, is getting more oxygen, more good quality blood. It's not, the mind isn't creating tension for the brain. That's not happening. Decision fatigue leads to poor judgment. Decision fatigue is eliminated in this. From the root, it's eliminated. Once each decision is made with a clear cut process and vision of where I'm headed. Early decisions are often better. Yes. Making early decision, knowing ahead of time what I should be doing, and then go from there. Late day choices need more support. So why is this? Has to do with the day, the actual movement, of the daytime from the morning, evening. Morning time, set up the schedule for the day. These are the 4 or 5 things I'm going to do. The decisions are made, and it's just going to flow. That's it. Yeah, there's always some ups and downs. Don't worry about it. And we don't want to deplete energy, because the energy depletion, it reduces willpower. The power of the will that we have is reduced by energy depletion, because it needs power. We say you should have strong willpower. All that simply means is stop damaging your internal energy. And then, so don't deplete it. Leave it alone. Make choices simple. Simplify choices. Don't get too much cluttered in with 100 possibilities. Keep it simple and straightforward. Right? Body energy is enhanced. Stress and fatigue loop back to the mind, and they will increase that energy damage. Stress and fatigue. So we don't want that. We want a very positive feedback loop, fostering resiliency. Of course, breaks are good. Changing the experience hour to hour, if you can do so, is very good. It reduces physiological strain. There's all kinds of strain by sitting too much, talking too much, eating too much, walking too much. There's too much of everything in life, right? Watching too much TV, watching too much of this, or it could be too much reading. It could be anything. We don't want physiological strain. So synergistic balance strengthens well-being, and that's really our goal here. Synergistic balance is our goal in year number 2, to maintain that balance. And in the current series, we're looking at revitalization, which really hones the process in much, much, much further, right? So now, having said that, I want to actually go into the quantum quality. Give me just a moment to pull that up. That's all it's all about. For me, starting with me first, Sachin, all this thing I'm presenting here applies first to me, before anybody else. I mean, that's the way it has to be. Okay, we're on week number 20. The quantum principle is what? Emotional energy and synchronized emotions. We just talked about the intellect. It's very simple. This is an easy principle to understand. Our emotions use energy. Let's just understand this principle clearly. Our emotions use energy. Is it true or not? Obviously. But remember, different emotions use different amounts of energy. So the negative emotions, or what we call negative emotions, they use a tremendous amount of energy. Worry, tension, fear, stress, negativity, anger, hatred, all of those negative, those contracted emotions, as Dr. Berman would say, they actually damage emotional energy. So how do we master emotions? By pulling out the energy out of emotion that doesn't belong there. Take, for example, anger and frustration. I said, well, I'm feeling angry and frustrated. Take steady breaths in, do some prayer if you want, or a mantra if you want, and pull the energy out from there. If you pull the energy out, so I'm not putting energy into this thing. This is an emotional wave that doesn't belong here. I'm going to pull the energy out. So you have to, and the way to do that is through meditation. That is the way. Prayers are good also, but meditation is a little bit more direct way. By doing alternate nostril, and you can do prayers like in your mind while you're doing the meditation. That's also okay. But it just has to do with consciously and deliberately pulling the energy out of that emotion. Because when we experience an emotion like frustration, anger, or some negative emotion, the tendency is just that's we identify with it. That's me. No, the emotion isn't who we are. We are not our emotions. Emotions are an experience in the domain of consciousness. That's what they are. Emotions are an experience, a wave. Every emotion is a wave. Every emotion has a beginning. It has a trigger that it begins. It sustains for some short period of time, and then it drops off. But it can cycle back again like a sine wave. It drops out, it comes back again, and it comes back again. So emotions, they come and they go. They come and they go. They're like waves on the ocean. And they are activated because we're putting certain kind of energy inside there, right? So mastery of these emotions means to recognize that I want to synchronize my emotions. Okay, so is that done deliberately? Yes. Definitely. Why? Let's look at just a couple of these slides. Emotional energy is the intensity and vitality of our feelings. Feelings have an intensity. They have vitality. Of course we have feelings. If we didn't have feelings, we wouldn't be human. They shape motivation and behavior throughout the day. But we can choose which emotions we want. So this energy plays a crucial role in how we respond to situations, influencing our interactions, decision-making process, stuff we just talked about. Understanding its significance can enhance emotional awareness, drive better personal outcomes. Significance of what? Of emotional energy. Of recognizing the energy inside every single emotion. Negative emotion, positive emotions. We already know this. There's not anything. This is to be this is to be realized through day-to-day experience. Positive emotions are experiential, so are negative. Okay. So the dynamics of relationships are influenced. There's emotional exchanges. There's cultivation of deeper bonds. There can be better communication, connection. All of that is involved in this. The point here is that synchronicity of emotion. So this week, the quantum quality, how do we apply? Yes. Am I going to experience emotions? Yes. So are you going to experience emotions? Yes. All right. I can choose. I can decide when I wake up in the morning tomorrow. You can do this starting tomorrow for this week. You can write it down on the 3x5 card, this quantum principle 20. And literally make firm decision. My emotions are synchronized. And just stay in that. Don't move away from it at all. Just stay in that state. And if you stay in it an hour at a time, that's a quantum jump. That's the beauty of this. It's a quantum jump an hour at a time. And that will impact the cognition. All the stuff we just talked about, which I won't repeat again here. It will impact significantly the cognition. And if you work on the cognition also, in terms of everything I just mentioned, which, the last 45 minutes we just talked about, and you apply this quantum quality, you won the game. You're the big winner. People say, I want to be a big winner. You can be a big winner tomorrow, starting today if you want. Why delay? How beautiful is this? How wonderful is it? It's very simple. Emotional integration, that's me. My emotions are integrated. That's it. End of story. It begins there, ends there. Keep those two words in the mind. My emotions are integrated. Emotional integration, that's me. And the more we stay with that, the more it will bring into the reality. Rather than saying, I feel so sad, I feel so depressed, I feel so this, I feel so tired, I feel this, I feel so anxious, throw all that out. Literally throw that language out completely. Throw it out. Because the more we use that language, the more we live in that reality. Throw it out. Completely throw that language out. Bring inside emotional integration. That's me. That's it. It begins there, ends there. And stays there. And along with that, cognitive clarity. I'm clear and I'm integrated emotionally. That's it. 2 basic points for today and for this week. I am absolutely clear psychologically, mentally. I'm not going to overanalyze, overthink. I'm not going to cross that demarcation line. I'm going to use my thoughts only to the extent as needed. And then settle very nicely in a state of ease. Not create dis/ease. That's a big difference. I can choose to say I am in a state of ease. Not dis/ease. Dis-ease. And how? Cognitive clarity, emotional integration, emotional synergy. That's it. And start with that. And stay with that 1 hour at a time. Don't worry about the whole day. Just in the next hour. Right now it's 8:57. It'll be 9 o'clock. I said from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sachin is going to be in those 2 states. That's it. And there's no ifs and buts about it. There's no diversion from that. I will automatically know what that means for me and what I need to do to stay in that state. There's a lot of suggestions we will have in the future on that. But we already know that. Maybe I need to do some exercises. Maybe I need to have a meal in the evening, maybe whatever I need to do to bring that synchronicity. I need to drop all worries. There's no need to worry about anything. It's not going to help me. All right, so this is called cognitive clarity. All right, so let's stop here and we will now just quickly do the closing song and then we will then open it up for any discussion that you may want to have.